Welcome to Plants in Paradise, a weekly show sponsored by the City of Key West to help you keep your plants and garden growing. Now, here's your host, Landscape Coordinator for the City of Key West, Kathy Wolf.
Good evening and welcome to Plants in Paradise, a show that will explore some of the different perspectives of our tropical plants and our tropical environment. This evening, my guest, Colonel Paul Scurlock, and I will look at a world that is really outstanding and is really unique in the United States, and that is the native flora of the Florida Keys. Paul, I really thank you for coming here this evening, and I appreciate you taking your time to join us.
Well, Kathy, when you say Plants in Paradise, that pays all the charges to get me to get in there. I think the Florida Keys, I think it or they are paradise. And the plants here, of course, are the plants in paradise.
Right, right. Well, we talked a little bit before going on the air, and I think the most appropriate title that fits your activities and your interest is naturalist. Covers all bases.
Yes.
Yes,
I like to see. I'm not a botanist per se. I'm not an entomologist. I'm not a herpetologist. I think nature and the total ecology, including people, is my interest. So I call myself a naturalist.
Mm-hmm. And you're involved with many organizations in the Keys to help people realize what we have and how valuable it is.
Exactly, and I love it.
Makes two of us.
Yeah, it's certainly true.
One of your projects in particular interests me, and I think a lot of people will benefit from many, many hours of effort on your part. Can you tell me a little bit about this book that's coming up?
Well, sort of background, I guess, to arouse the interest. I rode the train down here in 1928, long before you were around. And sitting on the back end of the observation car and seeing these keys as such, I thought, I'll get back here sometime. I did come back here 11 years ago. Went out on one of the keys, and I spent 2 hours from one end of the key to the other. I didn't find one confounded plant that I knew. And yet I'd studied them.
Sounds familiar.
The Rocky Mountains and the Carolinas, the Northeast, the 3 years in the Mediterranean studying plants. But I found nothing. So I said, if I can't do anything else, let me put together something as I learn. So the next character, if you come down with the same impulse, will have something to work with. So
great.
That's what's
great. Well, I know from my personal experience, same situation. Came down from a different part of the country and had to relearn everything.
You see, it leads us right into the subject today. This book that Ward put together, was the chairman, sponsored by the Audubon Society and the Friends and all this other thing, lists 20 native trees and shrubs in the state of Florida that are on the endangered list, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 9 of these 20 are in the Florida Keys. And interesting, too, 7 of these 9 are no other place in Florida.
Not
They're
even the
only
mainland.
in the Keys.
Only in the Keys.
And one of the slides I'm going to show you today of the autograph tree, or the Trucia rosea, in 1967, Ward's people reported, and Albert Little reported, that there was none in the wild state.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we found one, as you know, up on Cudjoe Key,
Mm-hmm.
right where they plan on building a new incinerator over my dead body.
Well, I think I'll elaborate a little bit on the book that you mentioned, Ward.
Mm-hmm.
It is one in a series put out by, I guess, the state of Florida on the rare and endangered biota of Florida. So there are volumes on birds, plants, and invertebrates, different aspects of the natural world. So you have a slide collection you've brought, and can you tell us a little bit about what we'll be seeing?
Yes, the first one we want to look at is the Cinecord, or the Acacia coreophylla, if they're botanists in the room listening. The last one reported was up on North Key Largo in 1967. And when that area was developed, they thought that one was gone, so there were no more left. But we found one up on Sugarloaf Key, and interestingly enough, right in the spot where a developer wanted to develop a condominium setup. So we talked to him. We pointed out what this tree was and what. So he said, we'll build our plan around it. Put a blue ribbon on it. So I have a picture of that particular tree. I'll show you in this slide.
Complete
You look
with
closer,
ribbon.
you see the blue ribbon. Now, if the color doesn't come through so well, right in the middle is a streak. That's the blue ribbon.
Okay.
Now, we found another one since that time up on Big Pine Key. I haven't seen that yet. It's been reported to me. So maybe we'll find some more.
Right. So it's a matter of time and people going out and exploring and
Yes.
and seeing what is there, the native treasures.
Hopefully, with a program of this sort, Kathy, and the book that I'm hoping to get out, maybe we can arouse that interest so they will go out and hunt. Because there's another plant I'll show you in here, too, about in a lady's yard. One of the old natural hammocks, which have been preserved through the years. A beautiful house built on it.
And this was in Key West, right?
Key West, yes. Well, she wanted to get more sunlight on the ground. So she had I call him a butcher, let's call him a landscaper, come in and cut out some of the trees. Well, he cut out this very rare tree instead of some of the other more common. So this is, we have an obligation to show people what they have before we can expect them to do that.
Right, right. Okay, as we're looking at the slides, there will be several categories.
Yes.
Threatened, endangered,
Yes.
and rare. Can you tell us a little bit about the differences?
If we take the first one, the endangered category, I mean, just what the word says, it's in danger of becoming extinct. It's in danger of disappearing. If we don't do something about it, either stop our method of developing everything or develop in certain areas to preserve these nurseries. The threatened group is one step removed, that if we don't do something about the threatened group, they'll move into the endangered group. Then you have a rare, which may be rare in certain places in the Keys, but abundant in some other places. Now, there are a couple of those in that group. Then you have those of special concern, like the mangroves, of course. All of these are plants that we should, for ourselves and the future, find some way of preserving. So, that's what it is.
Okay.
Now, the first 5 slides that I'll show are in the endangered group. If we don't do something about those, we'll lose them.
We'll lose them.
The first one is the Coreophylla.
Okay, I guess we're ready. Here
All
we
right,
are.
now this is the one that's up on Sugarloaf Key. You can't see, maybe you can't see that ribbon in there, but it's there. The builder has assured us that he would move the condominium so that this tree could be preserved. Now, wish you could see the true color of this in the woods when you're there, because the yellow flowers, those yellow balls, are just brilliant golden yellow.
I've visited this particular tree too, and the fragrance is
Yes.
beautiful
Very
when it's
fragrant.
in full bloom.
Now, this gives you the pattern of the leaves against the sky, and all those little circles in there are the golden flowers. Now, in Big Pine, in the cactus hammock, is a tree called the tree cactus. At one time, there were lots of that in the city of Key West. It's a rare tree. The only place I've actually seen it is there, although it is reported on a couple of the other keys, which I haven't found yet. And the next picture here, this is a plant in bloom. It's a night bloomer, blooms about 11 o'clock at night, and when the sun hits it in the morning, it wilts immediately.
So you went on a camping trip to get this picture.
This doggone tree, I live 15 miles from there. I climbed in through Cactus Hammock in the dark with a flashlight to sit and wait for this thing to open. Then with a flash, I had to do it with a flash. The next picture will show a little bit of a head-on. As it happens, I wish you could see this in its natural light. There are very few botanists who have ever seen this actual plant in flower. Then it has a red fruit.
You had mentioned that these used to grow in Key West, and
Yes.
there's a rumor I've heard on several occasions that there are only 2 native trees in Key West.
Ah,
What would you say about that?
I don't believe it.
I don't either.
No, well, this is the one I would have. One's on camera now. This is the Cupania, Florida Cupania. The first time I found this was in Watson Hammock on Big Pine Key again. But later we found one out on Summerlin Key on the back road there, growing out right along the road. Now, the one in Watson Hammock will be preserved because it's in a state park. But this one, which you're seeing a picture of here, is growing right along the road. And if we can't do something, get the people to build a house there to save this tree,
Right.
we'll lose this. Now, there's a cluster of about, I guess, about a dozen of these here. It has the flowers are sort of white, a little off-white, tinge of yellow, and they have this large clusters of them. They're beautiful flowers. And then the fruit is that green case, the seed pod, turns brown and black, then it cracks open, and the 3 seeds, black, hard, polished-looking seeds, pop out. Now, what we've been doing lately around this tree, we've been gathering up some of these seeds and giving them to some of the people that we think would treat them with tender, loving care. This is one of those in Key West, one of those natives in Key West. This is that red stopper. Now, the red stopper was only reported in Key West, but we found now, with your help, about 4 or 5 locations of this. George Avery and I found some on Lignum Vitae Key. We also found one tree up at Upper Key Largo. So this is on the endangered list. It's a beautiful thing, and this is the one that I mentioned a while ago that this dear lady didn't recognize it and had some of it chopped out, cut down, and hauled off just so that you get more sunlight into the ground. I'd rather have cut down the big trees to save it.
Yeah.
But
And it's a beautiful plant. One of a member of many stoppers, the stopper family. I think another interesting thing about the native plants, aside from their appearance, is some of the medicinal uses that come down to us from them.
In fact, they tell the story about the stopper family. It's nature's Pepto-Bismol.
Right.
This fruit is a green fruit, a yellow fruit, and the black fruit in the shape of the leaves. It's a very attractive plant, too. It's one I'd like to have in the yard. Not only is it in the endangered list. Now, I guess most remarkable development in recent years is right here in Key West. You know, there was a lot of talk when the city leased the golf course to Arnheim and Wood to build a golf course and build condominiums and such. And they said they would build one of the top finest golf courses in the world. Money seemed to be no question. They were spending it. But when you and I and a couple of other folks found this tree, which is the Xanthoxylum flavum, or satinwood, or yellowheart, I knew this tree when I was a Boy Scout back 150 years ago. When we were making bows and arrows, and I wanted to back the bow with a piece of gorgeous wood. A little piece of satinwood, so wide, 1.5 inches wide, 4 inches long, and 1/8 of an inch thick, cost $10 back in the dark days. Do you know what it would be today? Well, Jamaica, for years, this was their main export.
But very
They
few
cleaned it
left.
out.
Very few left.
Yes, exactly. Now, the only one known, say, 3 years ago, was in Bay Honda State Park. So they built a big fence around that to keep people so they couldn't even breathe on it. Later, they think they found another one down below that. And then the field director of Audubon found one in the Marquesas. There were 3 trees, but the flowers, the female flower and the male flower, are on separate trees.
2 different trees.
So if you don't have 2, you can't have a propagation. So we felt when these 3 trees die, it's gone.
No more. And not found on the mainland. This is another
Exactly.
one of those.
None of
Only in the Keys.
all 5 of these so far, none of these are on the mainland, only in the Keys. Now, when we found this one, we got all of the interesting people together, and we finally identified it carefully. And with this next slide, I'll show you one of the means of identifying. This leaf, if you hold it up against the sun, against the light, you'll see little windows come through of light, which is the positive identification. And then the flower itself is a gorgeous thing. And then the fruit pod, the seed pod, beyond that, has black seeds, which you can see on there.
Right.
But to wrap this up, the golf course people have decided maybe to name this golf course the Satinwood Golf Course, and they told us they would save every one.
Beautiful.
They're moving 3 and changing the plans of the golf course to save the rest of it in their
Right.
So
And I
this
think
looks like it should be.
I think the total number on the course was 17.
17, yes.
That was it. So,
Yes.
and there are some reproducing, and
Yes,
we can
yes.
spread the trees around.
Thanks to your indigenous garden.
I think we'll take a short break here and come back to more slides.
Good.
Colonel Paul Scurlock is with me this evening, and we're taking a look at some of the native treasures, some of the more remarkable plants of our native flora. We'll be back in a few moments. Back again with Colonel Paul Scurlock, and a look at some of the native plants that are more unusual and more unique in the wide and large flora we have in the Keys. The slides we've seen are those of the endangered category. What comes next?
The threatened. Those will go into endangered if they don't do something about them.
All right, let's take a look at those then.
All right, the first one I'd like to look at is called the prickly apple. It's in that same serious tribe of cacti as that tree cactus we looked at before. And I want to, so the next slide on this one just shows you the spines on the stems themselves. There's about 8 or 9 little spines in each of these areoles. And then I want to show the fruit on the next slide. Because we showed the flower on the Cereus robinii, let's show the fruit on the Cereus gracilis. But they're the same tribe, the same grouping. But now this was up on, also in cactus hammock. But I have found those in several of the other upper keys. But it can go if we don't take care of it. The silver palm, of course, is known in Florida as sort of a symbol. People dig these up, unfortunately, and they move them, they try to transplant them, and they just don't work.
It's very difficult.
Very difficult.
Very
Look at the
difficult.
fruit on the next slide here. It's a gorgeous reddish purple fruit. If you see it in the woods, out in the pine woods where the silver thatch likes to grow, you'd be impressed with it. The cover, ground covers in the Keys are very important. Something to cover the rock. This is the beach creeper or the golden creeper, which covers the ground beautifully and is on the endangered list or on the threatened list. So I'd like to get folks interested to save this. It has a very attractive flower. It's sort of a pinkish red flower. I wish you could see it in the field. And then the fruit has the golden color, the little golden berries, which gives that, I think, the name, the golden creeper. But it's a very attractive thing. It doesn't get very high, maybe 8-10 inches, but would give you a good ground cover without the grass. Now, I guess if I fell in love with any one tree in my life, it's the lignum vitae. The lignum vitae, from an industrial viewpoint, has a built-in resin. So if you want to grind corn and peas and stuff like that in food, you can make your gears out of lignum vitae. You never have to put oil them because it has its own lubrication. And as a matter of interest, the Navy still uses that
for bearings.
In the bearings, yes, and also as in the drive shaft
of a propeller
to keep us from bouncing on the sides. But the flower, this is a rich blue, almost purplish blue flower. There's one in Key West, incidentally, I think a champion here, not total champion, but it's about 2 stories high. It was planted in 1905, just off of Truman Avenue. It's just a gorgeous thing. Now, interesting enough about this, the seed pods, which are brilliant red, the arrow is brilliant red, and they're all shapes of hearts or diamonds, can be just as attractive as the flower. I wish you could see that in good color. Now, all these nice plants we've talked about, let's talk about one that's not so nice. This is the manchineel. The manchineel is considered by some to be the most deadly poison tree in the Western Hemisphere. They tell a story about the Indians. They used to tie their people, the enemies, their captives to the tree and slice it so that
The sap would run down
over them and they'd die a horrible death. They also tell a story of two sailors who ate some land crabs that ate some of the apples. I'll show you apples here on a later picture. There's the apple growing on the tree, and then when it drops on the ground, then the land crabs eat these apples. The sailors ate the land crabs, and the two of them died. Now, I didn't see this proven, but that's true for it.
But they are attractive. They smell like apples
Beautiful.
and well, like a crab apple in size.
Here's another plant that people like to try to transplant. That's the old Malaconia sea lavender.
Sea lavender.
Most people know by. This is up on Geiger Key. The only place I've found much of it, I've found some on Scurlock and some of the other keys, but Geiger has a lot of it. And when if the flowers, there's a white flower and the fuzzy kind of leaves, it just makes you want to reach out and touch it.
And it's a plant that does very well in salt, wind, usually growing right on the edge of the shoreline.
In the sand, yes. In fact, the root system of the plant helps to hold your shoreline, too. And people like to dig it up. Again, when they dig it up and it dies, first you know we won't have it. It's on them threatening us now. Let's see, this is the key thatch palm, which there are two thatch palms, the Florida thatch and the key thatch. This is the Mauricii, which is only found in the Keys. And this is another one that folks like to dig up.
Another one that's difficult to have to do successfully, too.
You've got to protect that one. And the fruit sort of hangs down off of a stem, white, pearly white color. It's just gorgeous. It's edible. Now, I don't say that you serve it to your friends as a choice dessert, but it is edible, and the birds, of course, love it. One I just can't get away from. This, in 1967, I mentioned before, Ward says was extinct. The last tree they found was in Upper Key Largo in 1967. We found one of these on Cudjoe Key, and the seed pod itself is just as attractive as the flower itself, but we've got to save this one or it's gone.
There are many of these in cultivation in the Keys, and I think that might be one way,
the
only way to save some of the plants we've seen.
You're so right.
Is collect seeds, collect cuttings.
Yes, either way.
Mm-hmm.
The one growing on Cudjoe is growing in a sink, so we know it was not planted, so that it is a native.
Mm-hmm. Well, my interest in the work that I do with the city is to try to landscape with native plants as much as possible. They're attractive, as we've seen. They're beautiful. And I think there's some advantages using them because of their water requirements or lack of water requirements.
Kathy, when you remember, these have developed over 300 million years to this ecology, this climate, this soil, this air, this water. But they'll grow. You bring in other stuff, and you're here for 6 months, and you go back to Pennsylvania, and you come back, it's dead.
Mm-hmm.
But these will grow.
They will, requiring, again, much less the water and fertilizer and maintenance that is usually required.
Absolutely right.
Okay.
I think you're doing a great job.
Do you have, let's see, for persons who would like to learn more about the natives and would like to learn how to identify them, I know your book will be one good way to achieve that goal. Can you give suggestions to people on other ways that they might learn about the natives?
Yes, I think the best thing to do is to hook on to some of the folks like you and Lois and George and I who will take them out and show them.
Okay.
Because unfortunately, there are not books available unless you want to do it as a botanist does, a lot of research to dig it out and find out what it is. Somebody just has to show them. I do a lot of that. I take folks out on trips for that purpose. So.
All right. Well, thank you again for coming this evening. Really enjoyed it, and enjoyed a small portion of your 24,000 slides.
I've enjoyed being with you, Kathy. You're doing a great job.
Thanks for coming by and joining us on Plants in Paradise. We'll be seeing you again next week, Tuesday evenings. Bye-bye.
Plants in Paradise is sponsored by the City of Key West. Gardening product brand names are used for informational purposes only. Such mention does not constitute an endorsement of a product over others that may do the same job while used in a similar manner. Questions or comments on today's show can be sent to this station, Telecommunications Incorporated, 1700 North Roosevelt Boulevard, Key West, Florida, 33040.